My name is Drew Waldron, and I am on with the co-founder of Create Labs, Abran Maldonado. Abran, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Now, what first led you down the path of developing a career for yourself in technology and then later on AI?
Sure. So I actually came to it very organically. I was working in the education space first, and prior to that, working in the music and entertainment industry. So I combined those two worlds first. That was my first passion of bringing media, entertainment, pop culture, hip hop, youth culture into the classroom. And my first stint as a public speaker was in the education world, speaking to educators about the importance of using youth engagement, pop culture as a form of youth engagement to motivate young people. In doing that work, the demand for the content that I was showing in my workshops and in my presentations, teachers were asking me for these one-off lessons of like, hey, that lesson you showed on stage, do you have a version of that that I can use in the classroom? I was getting these requests all over the world. Um, so I just decided organically out of the demand to create an education startup, a tech platform where I can deliver these lessons, these like very engaging student centered pop culture, created lessons. And I started New School. So New School was my first ed tech startup, my first tech startup ever in the ed tech space in the very early days of ed tech. So I did that for a while. It was very successful. A lot of teachers and schools were subscribing. That kind of lived its life until I kind of hit a ceiling and realized that I needed more technology to automate, and this was pre AI. So in the late 2010s, I would say 2017, I started to look at what's the next step in my career, and I created Create Labs. So Create Labs, which the logo is on my hat, was my response to understanding that we needed to upskill our communities, especially the underserved communities, in tech skills. Seeing what normal jobs were capping out at from a salary standpoint and compensation wise was the starting point in a tech career. So someone's career might cap out at like 70, 80K. You're starting in the tech world at 70, 80K. So I'm like, hey guys, we need to learn these new skills. And I became everyone's kind of go-to thought leader on what are the next cutting edge skills, the next cutting edge technologies that we need to be exposed to take us into the future. Now, I was doing this as events and activations, what we call Create Fest, late 2010, like 2018, 2019, right in that same area. The pandemic hit in 2020. And it was in that window where I discovered that AI was going to be the next wave. And by some type of divine intervention or some type of luck, I was discovered by OpenAI to help them on the early stages of what we know as GPT-3 and now is ChatGPT.
My God, to come into OpenAI in 2020, 2021, like right before they absolutely blow up with ChatGPT must have been unreal. And you tested the early models. What was it like to get early access to this tool that is now used on such an insane scale?
So there's a funny story behind that because in those days, everyone was home online, either on Twitter or on Clubhouse, just locked in their homes, trying to find something to do. And I read the early papers and the articles on GPT-2, which was never released at that time because it was deemed too unsafe. There weren't enough guardrails to release it publicly. Um, and just speaking out into the ether, which they say always do that, right? Always speak things into existence that you want to happen in your life.
Mhm.
And I was saying, hey, I'm doing a lot of great social impact work around technology. Would love to get my hands on this technology and see what I could do with it, especially for underserved communities. Sure enough, I had a DM on Twitter, and I opened it up, and it was Greg Brockman, the co-founder of OpenAI, saying, hey, shoot me your email. I want to give you access to this thing, GPT-3. So of course, I'm losing my mind, jumping up and down to my wife, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm so happy for you." She didn't know what I was excited for. I barely even knew what I was excited for. So in those beginning days, it was an invite only research beta for GPT-3. So I'm part of this early crew of less than 100 people around the globe that got access to test that out in the early days. And back then, you had to you had to submit a proposal for how you wanted to use the AI. You couldn't just publish or deploy anything that you wanted. And some of my early testing and early proposals were around social impact, education, bias, diversity, representation, things that mattered mostly to me and the work that I was already doing. And, Ashley, who was my early connection at OpenAI, who submitted, took that time to meet with me through a Zoom call to review my proposal, said, hey, we're going to decline your request because you're creating what are known as like high risk or life and death uses of AI. But we like the way you're thinking about this tool. No one else is testing it for these types of use cases. Do you want to be an ambassador? And that's when I got tapped by Ashley to be an ambassador and support the general broader community with their own use cases and give them insight on how to prompt engineer in those early days.
That is so cool. And in regards to ChatGPT and the AI boom in general, I feel like a lot of people associate the start of that AI boom with the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022. So now, recording this, we are coming up on 3 years of the general public using this
That's
technology
right.
at a large scale. What has surprised you as someone who has had early access to this technology? What were you expecting over the last 3 years, and what surprised you?
Well, chat surprised me because in those early days, obviously we signed 1,000 NDAs to like test the early models before they were released to the public, and we were testing the early stages of Dolly, which is now image gen, right? The early stages of image generation, and Codex, which is code generation, and doing early demos around that. And we were already having conversations with the AI through what's known as the playground, which is where you build things with OpenAI models. And they said, hey, test out this chat interface. Let us know what you think. And I'm testing this chat thing, and I'm like, it's just a chat interface. Like, what am I supposed to be, wowed by? I'm talking to it no different than I was already talking to it, but the interface is a little different. Who knew that us as humans, like, we just need things packaged differently, right? Like it was no different than how you were already allowed to access OpenAI's playground and talk to what was known as the Da Vinci models back then in GPT-3. But because it was packaged differently as a chat interface and there were some presets behind the scenes on how they kind of structured the prompt around and the system instructions around what you could do within ChatGPT, none of us thought that was going to take off. OpenAI didn't even know it was going to take off and have the viral moment that it did at that stage. And obviously, the more demand, the more computing, the more resources from the team that they were putting towards it, we gave it more attention. And and now you're starting to see what the world responds to from a product standpoint. And we'll talk about it. I think agentic use of AI is having that same moment now, where there have been different forms of agents and agentic automations like Zapier and N8N, Tiny AI, you know, Claude even. No one, blinked an eye at it. But now that ChatGPT included agents, now everyone's like, oh, agents. So it's like sometimes it's just how you deliver certain technologies to the people to get them to take notice.
Yeah, well, maybe now is a great time to jump into it and talk about it. Before we started recording, you told me that you believe the use of agents is going to be the next giant wave of AI advancement. Why do you believe that, and what should the average person know about this technology?
So this is the moment that everyone is worried about when it comes to like AIs taking over jobs. It's being able to create these webs and networks of autonomous ChatGPTs that can take action on your behalf. Because it's different when you're just having a conversation with it and you're just asking it to summarize an article or re-explain something to you. But the time saver and the lifesaver, true to be honest, is when you can assign a task to something as powerful and intelligent that reasons on your behalf, like a ChatGPT, while you turn and go do something else, or while you go and go outside and spend time with your family, the work is still getting done for you. The agentic work that can be done is what now CEOs are looking at and saying, okay, let's look at what we're spending on the workforce. Let's look at what our workforce is spending time on. What are the tedious, repetitive tasks that they're spending most of their time on? And can that be done by an agent? So executives are looking at this and reaching out to me saying, what kind of agents can you build us as a company to reevaluate this and see if we need to reevaluate our workforce? Now, for the everyday person that couldn't wrap their head around how to use that on a daily level, now ChatGPT has introduced agents that now, just in this last week, I made one to run my family. So this family agent scheduled doctor's appointments, added it to the family calendar, is looking at more camps for my kids to sign up for, dance class and whatnot, and is doing all the adulting tasks that maybe we forget to do or need reminding or need to stay on top of that we put at the bottom of our to-do list. The agent is doing it for me and is just checking in with me and saying, hey, I did this for you, or I'm at a page that you might need to log into. Take over real quick, log in, and then I'll take care of the rest. So it's going to optimize all of us with digital assistance at a personal level, but our employers are looking at this at a workforce level too, and a labor level. And both things are going to get really shook up and disrupted in the next few months.
I'm getting a good sense of the advice that you're giving to all of your corporate clients, but you don't just speak to corporate clients, you speak to education clients. How would you say that your advice to education clients differs from corporate clients?
That definitely has come organically, really on both sides. But education, they really reached out to me because they remember me from my days in the education world, either
Mm.
through New School or through my PhD work with Pedro Noguera. So Dr. Noguera, who's now a dean at USC, is one of the leading, pioneers around what's known as urban reform in education, urban education reform, uh, culturally relevant education, or what they call culturally responsive pedagogy. He's really one of the pioneers in that space, and I worked under him. He was my advisor, so I'm from his tree, I guess. So people understand the expertise that I have from the education side, but I also have this new fluency in AI. So they're like, oh, he can speak both languages. He understands our world. He understands what we're up against, but he can also lead us into this new world with AI. So my message when I'm on stage in the education world very much speaks to what they deal with on a regular basis because I can empathize with that. I've been in the classroom and I've done the education research with the best, like Pedro, to understand how to combine their pedagogy with technology. When it comes to the corporate world, the way it overlaps is I tell superintendents and school leaders and administrators, I'm going to treat you like my enterprise customers and clients because you can't just wait for someone to make a ChatGPT for the classroom. So often that's what happens. They see what they don't see what's happening in the real world, from an industry standpoint, and they just wait for someone to repackage it for the classroom and for education and say, I'm going to sell you the AI for education product. What I tell them is, don't wait for that. Be on pace with industry. Be on pace with the Visas and the MasterCards and the Salesforces of the world. Stay as tapped in as they are. So that way, when industry is moving, when innovation is happening, you're up to date as much as they are. Instead of getting the second wave of information, a year later, 6 months later, because someone made a rebranded version for the classroom. So I'm really trying to teach them how to get out of that mindset and really think like industry leaders.
Exactly. Jump on now while you can.
Exactly.
Abran, it's been so cool to interview you over the past 10 or 15 minutes, and we have time for one more question. So I
Sure.
want to end on this one. In a world that is constantly changing, technology that is constantly evolving, what are you optimistic about in regards to the future?
I really see an opportunity for more human connection. And I know everyone is worried about, you know, AI is going to automate so much. We're going to lose so much creativity and humanity because of AI. I really do see the opposite because I've been so connected to it. Um, I've met more people, traveled more around the world, have connected with more humans because of AI than I ever have before in my career. And I also am very passionate about creative fields and what's known in the world as called world building in the world of entertainment. We know George Lucas and Stan Lee and James Cameron as world builders because they build universes that we watch on TV or watch in the movie theaters. This technology is empowering and enabling any creatives out there to create their own worlds right from the comfort of their homes. You don't have to pursue a career in Hollywood per se to create your universe, tell your own stories, make your own movies, make your own video games, make your own books. And as you see from the geek paraphernalia behind me, the memorabilia, I'm a big fan of fandoms with Marvel and Star Wars. And I think there's such a big opportunity for young creatives or creatives of all ages to make their universes now with this technology, especially in what they call the multimodal side of it, video generation, storytelling with things like VO3 created by Google and Sora, and all the tools that are coming out now that just give people the more tools that they need to be as creative as they have ever been before.
Excellent and very well said from one geek to another.
Yes.
Abran, it's been great to sit down and interview you. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it, man. Look forward to another conversation soon.